Hey everyone, it's Docfire. It's time for another stock doing. Looks like I'm taking it. Number 2, but I'm not. Sit that on my back porch. It is 53 degrees, so it's a little bit warmer today. Well, it's 53 degrees in the transducer. This is the next day from my previous video that looked just like this. And I started thinking. There's a lot of questions that were asked from the video, and I think I answered a lot of them. But just the keynote, this test is being done on a factory ShockTech gun. The ShockTech gun that you could buy today from ShockTech, it's exactly the same. It's set to the last setting that we had it set at the last part of the video, which I'll put a clip in, and we'll see that. I think we're like at 300 and, well, actually, it's the Regs brought up to 302. 330, 329, 326, 330. So we can say that's pretty consistent. Because you'll see that in a minute, but the IBG has not been touched from the last one, where we were shooting at like 280 feet per second at 225 PSI. And so today, I did a little change. So let me get the gun into view here. So we have the pressure transducer on here. That's all the same. This is still the factory hose. I didn't lengthen it or shorten it to fit on this regulator, so it's no change in that length. I put an AKA 2-liter on here. Now let's see what it does. So remember before, I shot the first, I shot it at 300 PSI, about 302 PSI in the CP regulator. Using Nelson Anarchy, same barrel, same everything. It's the same bag of paint that I pulled out of that's been in the house, and it's climatized that. It's the same insert. Everything is the same. It's just 4 degrees warmer today, which could have an effect. Mark Davis and I were talking about is there temperature stuff? Probably is. I'm sure there's something there, but it's not really that cold out here. It's cool. It's colder yesterday for whatever reason. Just felt colder. But anyway, the whole point. We should just turn it all away. The whole point is let's just change the regulator and see what happens with it. So anyway, you see we're at 303, 302. These poppet style regulars, they tend to kind of spike up, creep up, and then you shoot it, then they find a consistent shooting. So you'll see in here that it's really shooting at about 200 or about 299 PSI, stuff like that. So we're going to turn the chrono on. We'll put the gun over the chrono, make sure it's nice and level. 335, 332, 333, 333, 329, 335. Okay, so I would say we're probably, we gained a few feet per second. Not much, a little bit. But the goal is now, let's drop 335 feet per second. It's not legal anywhere. So let's drop it down to 300 feet per second. And that's tournament legal. So see if I can take that back. I got to clear these out. And at 280 PSI, we're still 327. So I think we went down to 240 PSI yesterday. Do a clearing shot. 250, I think it was like 245 PSI, if I recall. We'll try to get close. 250. Yeah, I think it's right there. So let's see. I'm going to put this over the chrono. Ignore all those other shots. It wasn't really on top of the chrono. Okay, 301, 302, 296, 302. So at 240 PSI, 200. So let it kind of equalize out here. About 241 PSI, 240, give or take. We're at 302 feet per second. So just with the regulator change, we've made some significant changes. But we want to get down to, let's go down to 225. That's the goal. Back that out significantly. And I know, that's, okay, so that is 221. So that's 280. Well, we're 280 feet per second. Okay. 280 feet per second. The reg is set at 220 psi. It's 285, 284, 289. Let's back it out some more. We got to shoot about 2 or 3 shots on these regs to kind of clear them out. And it's 277. So let everything just kind of rest for a little bit. All right. Okay, that's 281, 279. That's a low one, 265, 280, 275, 275, 279. I'm going to bump it up just a little bit. All right. Just want it to be right around that 280, 282, 285, 284, 283. That's a little too much. Down just a little bit. Trying to get right at that point. 288, 279, 278, 281, 281, 278, 275. Just going to bring it up just a little bit. I think we'll call it good right here. 287, 281, 285, 280, 277. I think right there is where I think we've kind of normalized out. So at, let's see, let's do it one more time. Let's shoot over here one more time. Okay, that's 282, 288, 284. It's actually a little hot. So at about 217 psi, we were 225 yesterday. So that's just under 10 psi. That's, you know, what is that? 8 psi? I don't know. Whatever. We were 225 yesterday, or 224 psi, shooting 280. And wow, we're at, so that's 214 right now. Just more curious. 284 at 214. Let everything normalize out again. 279. 276. 277. I'm slow shooting it now over there. Let's bump it up just a little bit. 279, 287, 290, 283. That's too high. These regs are just a little bit more sensitive to each adjustment, I've noticed. 281, 283. I think that's good. So let's see. Let's let it equalize out. We're at 214, nice and level. 279. Go back to 214. These regs do creep. They all creep just a little bit. 284. Yeah, so I think that's pretty good. It's about, let's say 215. And we'll say it's a 10 psi drop. So I'm shooting 285 feet per second at 215 psi. 10 psi drop. The only thing I changed was the reg. Okay, it's the only thing I changed. So why is it? Why do you guys think that is? This is my theory on it, is that in this gun, you have a volume chamber, and that volume chamber starts from the top of the piston, okay, where it's regulated pressure, and all that internal cavity on the backside of that valve, all right? All that air, and there's so much volume there, and that volume is sitting at a certain pressure. Well, is that enough volume at 200 psi or 220 psi? Let's just say those numbers. Is that enough volume to get a ball to go 285 feet per second? And I think the answer is no. I think what happens is that it demands a little bit more from the regulator. So when it fires, the regulator is supplementing a little bit. So the regulator is always opening. When the system's at rest right now, the regulator is closed. It's not it's regulated already, something. And now it's waiting for demand. And then it's when demand comes, it's going to pressurize the system to that set mark. And I think when you fire it, it's opening that valve and letting the air come in, and a little bit of that air is being utilized to help push that ball to velocity. And I think on these poppet style regulators comparative to a moving base, like a CP or Inception or War Games and stuff like that, the poppets are like Palmer's, the 2 liters and stuff like that. I think that if it needs a specific amount of volume to push that ball, it's my theory, that if the regulator cannot provide that volume, then it compensates that with pressure. So you need to increase the pressure to get that amount of volume of air to move and get that ball to velocity. That's my theory. I could be wrong on it. I don't know. Hope my audio is working good too. It was really messed up yesterday. I put a new audio device on today. Let's see if that works. But anyway, that's my theory on it. But we, just by changing a regulator, we dropped the PSI down to, I mean, nothing else has changed. I mean, I could back the IBG out if you guys want. Want to do that? Let's get the Allen key. Let's back the IBG out to all the way out. Let's play around just a little bit. Hopefully this isn't that long of a video. Right now the IBG is in how I left it yesterday. The last time was 2 turns in from flush. I'm going to back it out. Let's get this cocking rod out. We're going to the Allen key in. 1 turn, 2 turns. Now let's see if I can get that in there. If you guys can see that, it's pretty much flush. It's not past it. It's like it was yesterday, where it's just barely, it's almost a flush. Really, really close. I'm kind of curious. This should lower the velocity, right? We were, 280 plus here a few minutes ago. All right, tighten that down. Let's get a couple shooting chronos over there. Turn that on. All right, 279, 270, 271, 270. Okay, so that's fine. Let's get it up to 280. I'm going to bring the pressure up a little bit. Now, by backing that IBG out, as we're putting less spring weight, obviously, and there's less force with the hammer opening the valve, so it's just less force. So 282, 286, 288. I'm going to back it down just a little bit. Ooh, that's a 293, 282, 277, 283, 275, 276, 278. Bring it up just a little bit. I'm going to get right around that 280. 282, 283, 286. We'll call that. So we're right at about 230 psi with the IVG all the way backed out. Now let's bring it in 1 full turn. Okay. Now in theory, right, you would be a little bit more efficient by having the dwell time of the valve lessened, meaning that there's less force on the there we go, half, 1 turn. There's less force on the spring, which is less force opening the valve, which in turn means the valve is theoretically not going to stay long as open, and any air pressure in the system is going to help the valve close a little faster. That's the theory. Okay, so we're now in 1 turn from flush, or 1 and a little bit. Oh, let's get a couple clearance shots for this. All right, 284, 287, 287, 290, 282, 287. Not a significant change. I think we were probably a little lower in velocity the last time. I kind of like that 1 turn in because it does give you a little bit, I don't know, if it provides any more consistency on that or whatever. Another thing that's interesting, I was talking to Mark Davis yesterday, and we talked a lot about that video. And he was working at ShockTech when they developed the RAT system, and with Danny Love. And I haven't talked to Danny about it. I'll probably have Danny watch these videos and see what he comments on them. But he had said that the spring manufacturer they use, which is a USA spring manufacturer, they went to this spring manufacturer and they tried all these combinations. It took months, and they would order another custom spring made, another custom spring made, and and different weights, different lengths, different amount of coils, all this stuff. And this is a spring set that he landed on that he felt worked best for the velocity range they were trying to achieve, and which is probably that 280 to 300 psi, give it right in that range. I think that's what they were trying to do, because that's, even back then, a lot of fields were 300 feet per second back then. Now I've heard a lot of 280 fields. It's easier to drop a gun down than it is to raise it up, in my opinion, bring the velocity up. That's why, and if you buy a gun from me, or if I tune a gun to you, I usually set it at 300 feet per second, because I know what barrel you're using. I don't know if your paint's going to be really good. And if you go out there and you have a shot that's your gun's really shooting low velocity, I'm probably going to get a phone call from you from the field, and you'll be an upset customer. So that's why I try to have stuff leaving at 300 feet per second, because there's a better chance that you're going to have a more enjoyable experience. And I think it's easier to lower the pressure, and that's why I do shock tech stuff. I just say, hey, just adjust the regulator down a little bit, or adjust it up, either which way, and you're going to get to your velocity. And then I ask them, send me a photo of the paint. Usually it's garbage paint, 9 times out of 10. Or I ask them what barrel did they match the paint to the barrel, and they're like, what? And then you're like, okay, well that's what you got to do. But anyway, trying to think. So we started here, and so we did gain a little bit. The regulator does do something, and this regulator I bought from someone, I don't know what condition it's in. It seems to brand new. It's a good, it's a newer 2-liter. So it seems to be working fine. It may have a little bit of a creep on it. I could do a Sidewinder. I think I have a new Sidewinder. I don't know. I think it's going to be close to the same. But I think that's when you see things and you see like someone else's gun and you say, hey, look at their gun is doing this. Well, it's the combination of all their components, and that starts here. The size of this tank does matter. Size does matter. My wife doesn't say it does, but it does in paintball. You'd be amazed how much it affects this regulator. Not necessarily the quality of the regulator. Yeah, a little bit. Is the regulator performing? Is this tank regulator performing how it should? Is it clean? Is your air good air? So this is the heart of everything. It's your tank. And if this is not operating correctly, or is got really garbage air in it, a lot of moisture, then you're going to have private problems down the system. And it's just going to amplify as it goes down the system. This is a Ninja Flex regulator. It's nice for testing because I can adjust the velocities. It's set at about 700 psi output on it, so it lets you guys know it's what I normally make running. And then the next thing is your ASA restrictive. These shock techs aren't. But they do have 290s come out of it, and every time you make a turn, there's some some loss there. The macroline hose is a large bore macroline, so it's got a larger hole in it, still stiffer. And then a 2-liter, to me, has always been the best flowing regulator. And then you goes into the gun and how much stuff it's got to go through there. And yes, if you go and you polish things a little bit and you tune things and clean up flow paths, that does help. But usually you need a lot of significant change. And even the bolt, how restrictive a bolt is, will really affect how this is going. Because if the bolt is really restrictive and it can't get the volume of air through, then you're going to have to increase your pressure to that to compensate that with pressure. And which isn't the end of the world, because quite frankly, if your gun's shooting between 200 psi to 450 psi, any range in there, and the gun shoots good, it feels good in your hand, it's a cocker. Run it. It works good. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about getting those numbers, because I've had some guns that I just can't get to where the customer wants to go with it, and it's just realistic. Sometimes the parts they picked and they're headfast on it. Sometimes it is what it is, or it performs better. Literally performs better at a certain setting, where they're like, well, I want it to run at this. I mean, when a customer says I want a gun set at this, I go, well, I can't guarantee the performance. I can guarantee the performance on something when I know it's tuned right. And whatever pressure that is, that's what it is. That's where it works. Or however setting that is, that's how that gun likes to work with the combination of stuff. And, but anyway, yeah, that's all I have. Comment away. I'm having a good time. Hope you guys are too. Docfire out.